Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with and welcoming into the studio Carl Gallups, pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church, and Rabbi Zev Porat from Israel. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, my friends. Welcome to this very special edition of Revealing the Truth, as we are going to discuss in this hour not only the book The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah. We're going to talk about Israel. Israel today, Israel in these upcoming elections, which are just 5 days away from the airing of this program. And we don't normally date our programs, but it's important that we have this inside information of what's going on behind the scenes in Israel, as opposed to what the news is saying. And then we have a prophecy expert who has a view of this upcoming clash, what's going on with the annexation of the recognition of the sovereignty of Israel over the Golan Heights, how that prophetically plays out, what that looks like from a standpoint of how it impacts our view of Gaza, and what the preparations are with these attacks that continue to come out of Gaza. Whether or not this says that there's a potential for the annexation of Judea and Samaria and the reclaiming of it, because we now have this right, the announcement of new settlements, many new settlements, in a place that I remember when Gush Katif was being bulldozed and that the IDF was removing Jewish families. This is now a complete reversal of this, and this is very significant that Israel is exercising, and the key word is sovereignty.
Yes.
And this word is given to us in Genesis 15 in the establishment of what sovereign or biblically mandated Israel is. And sovereign biblically mandated Israel, for our audience, is all of Syria, all of Lebanon, most of Iraq from just short of Mosul, just down to short of Baghdad, all of Jordan, northern Saudi Arabia, and northern Egypt is biblically mandated sovereign Israel. And never in the 4,500 years since God has spoken those words to Abraham in Genesis 15 have we ever been sovereign in the land.
That's right.
And this recognition of the Golan Heights as being sovereign to Israel is the first significant tent peg expansion that we've seen in our lifetime. This is tremendous.
Yeah. Instead of taking land from Israel, it's more of an acknowledgement of its sovereignty over a land.
Yes.
That the spoils of war, but it's necessary that they keep that.
And that's why President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, are being attacked day and night, because it's really spiritual warfare.
It's demonic,
the enemy is at rage.
Yes.
He knows that his days are numbered. He knows that we're getting closer and closer. You meant those boundaries are getting closer and closer. Now, obviously, we're not going to have the full boundaries till Jesus returns, but the opening for those boundaries has just been released, has just been opened.
Yes.
In the 70th year of the nation of Israel, when the U.S. Embassy has been moved from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim to Jerusalem, when the Golan Heights have been acknowledged by United States as part of Israel,
Sovereign
legally,
possession.
the sovereignty
That's right.
of Israel, as you said, which is in the Bible, and we don't really need the permission of the nations or anybody to do that, but it shows the unity between the United States and Israel right now. It shows that Donald Trump has been positioned to be the president of the United States by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Netanyahu being positioned. And if you ask me and you ask the average Israeli in the streets today, not the news, the average Israeli, who is going to be elected April 9th? Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be elected, not because he's an angel, but because he's being used by God for such a time like this.
Yeah, yeah.
The most profound thing that I have witnessed in Genesis 12 and 3 blessings is that on a Thursday, Donald Trump declares that Israel is sovereign over the Golan Heights.
Amazing.
24 hours later, at the exact hour, 24 hours later, The Mueller investigation completely exonerates Donald Trump from any collusion in the Russian investigation.
Yes.
24 hours of a sovereignty recognition of Israel. God responds with
Yes.
the blessing. I will bless those that bless
I
thee.
was
Amen.
going
I
to
will
quote
curse
it.
those that
Very
curse
good.
thee. 24
Yes.
hours, one
Yes.
cycle of time in God's economy, and we
Yes.
see the blessing poured out on us, on this Donald Trump, this President of the United
Yes.
States.
Amen.
And how many times has it been cataloged that down through America's history, whenever we have helped to divide Israel or spoken against Israel's right to exist in any way, within 24 to 48 hours, some kind of
Absolutely.
horrendous
You
curse.
take a look at Bill Koenig,
Yes.
Eye to Eye. Bill
Yes.
Koenig, the author of Eye to Eye, good friend of the program.
He's cataloged it.
Cataloged it in his book Eye to Eye, even brought it to current day.
Yes.
What's so interesting is that, of course, God says through the prophet Joel, never again will my land be divided. We know that there is this New Madrid fault line, and this extends across the midsection of America. And should this fault line begin to erupt, that the United States will be exactly divided in half. And every time we talk about dividing the land, there is a small eruption on this fault line where God is saying, there's a little rumbling. And during the Obama administration, you can track how many times, how many tremors there were along this New Madrid fault line that extends along the Mississippi River Valley that would literally divide America into two, because every time we move towards this, we saw
Yes.
this hand of God move.
Yeah. And you know, Rabbi Eric, you were speaking of when the sovereignty of the Golan Heights was recognized by Donald Trump. Within 24 hours, the Mueller investigation exonerates him. I go back to the signing of the Jerusalem Embassy Act. When he signed that, the United Nations immediately met to condemn him. The OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, met to condemn him, breathed out threats against Israel over the whole thing. But watch what happened immediately after that, within the weeks and months after that, right around to the time we're living in right now. What was God's blessing on Donald Trump? Even though he was under the Mueller investigation, everything. I don't even know how to say this properly. I don't know how to describe this, but you will know, the audience will understand what I'm trying to say here. In that time, when he signed that act, I mean, up until then, it was he colluded with the Russians. We got to get Mueller investigated. We got to get him out. We've got to indict him. We're going to put him in prison. I mean, all of this vitriol was coming. He signed it anyway. In the midst of that, blessed Israel. The next thing that happens is the deep state. It's like God pulls back the curtains and the veils. Every time they level a charge against him, they were proven to be idiots and false. The mainstream media has burnt itself down. Politicians have burnt themselves down. James Comey, I mean, you go down the list of all of these people that have come out and been proven to be deep state operatives, liars, deceivers, all along. And there's a whole list of them. It's like, people were marveling at this. It's like, you know, water off a duck's back. It was whatever was slung on him after he signed the Jerusalem Embassy Act. It was just being exposed. It was like he was untouchable. Oh, the media would trash him, yes. People would lie about him, yes. But then following, shortly after that, the exposure of their lies and deceit would be before the world. It's supernatural. And listen, and Rabbi Zev and I know I can speak for you on this. We are not saying that Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu are angels from heaven or some kind of messiahs or saviors to the world. We're saying that these two men, because God says so, apparently, his hand is on them and he's using them and he's blessing them. And when Donald Trump blesses Israel, the God of heaven blesses him. Amen. And America. Amen. And Israel. So these are biblical principles that we're watching in the flesh. Whether you have eyes to see or not is up to you. But there it is, right before our eyes. So far, he has been basically untouchable. I mean, they've accused him of sex crimes, of money stealing, of IRS, of colluding with Russia. I mean, just it piles on daily. And every time it just slides off, just slides off, just slides off. And he keeps going forward in the United States. The economy's better than it's ever been. Israel's being blessed. I mean, it's unbelievable. But God's promise, I will bless those that bless you. I will curse those that curse you.
Amen.
So right now, Benjamin Netanyahu is in Moscow. He's meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Russian collusion?
5 days, 4 days, 5 days before the election, okay, he's meeting with Vladimir Putin to talk to him about the role in Syria,
Yeah.
to talk to them about the role in Iran,
Yeah.
to talk to them about their role in what they're going to do. And really, for the first time in modern history, he has two leverage points. He has natural gas and he has oil.
Yes.
And Russia has been desperate to bring energy resources to an energy depleted land. Now, Jordan, the sub authority of Jordan, has voted to break this multi-billion-dollar gas deal from the Leviathan through Noble Energy to bring a pipeline into Jordan to provide their needs for, I forget how many, 3.5 billion cubic meters of gas. Cyprus is in negotiations for a pipeline. When I read Ezekiel 38 many years ago, and I read the fourth requirement of the campaign of Gog Magog, it said that Israel would have so much wealth that the world would want to plunder it, so much silver and gold. Well, you think silver and gold. Is this going to be Egypt now, like they did at the time of Pharaoh? Is this going to be like Abimelech, who's giving the bride price? Is it like Pharaoh, who's giving the bride price? Or is there something we're not seeing? And the something we're not seeing is the black gold of oil and the silver gas pipelines of Leviathan. And we're seeing that today as this pipeline. Bright silver, stainless steel pipe, bright silver, glinters in the sunlight. The sun sparkles off of these pipelines. And we see the black gold in underneath the Golan Heights. We see Zion Oil drilling in the Jezreel Valley, looking for where all this is because they're trying to find the vein. And so this is so prophetic, so significant that the whole time we've been looking at Israel with the same geology as the neighboring countries that have tremendous oil reserves. The geology of the neighboring countries is the same geology as it. I mean, God, the great geologist, doesn't say that 250 miles to your east is going to be great oil, but I'm not going to give you any part of that. Right? Mosul, which is biblical Nineveh, is the oil-producing capital of Iraq. Okay? That's not so far from the Golan Heights. That's not so far from the northeastern border of Israel.
Driving distances in the United States.
Right. So what's going on, Zev, prophetically from this standpoint of what's God doing with these things and these alignments? And we're watching players as if we're seeing a chess game. And we're seeing moves being made and people taken off the board. Okay, Assad's on the board, Assad's off the board. Muhammad Abbas, okay, he's on the board, he's off the board. Hamas. Okay, if there were an election today in Judea and Samaria, some say Hamas would be elected there so that there could be more turmoil, more surus to come out of this, more tumult that come out of this region. But Gaza is suffering, and they're having riots and civil war almost within the borders of Gaza that's not being reported.
Who's controlling that?
Hamas.
Absolutely.
Okay, because they're keeping the wealth, and so they're no different than Yasser Arafat was in the palace that he built, and Muhammad Abbas with his fat catting.
It's the same Yasser Arafat with a different name.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly. And then he's already named a successor who's the third in line of another Yasser Arafat with a different name.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's not that they love the land. They just hate the Jews.
Exactly.
It's
That little piece of land
Mm-hmm.
is causing a riot.
Yeah.
Just a little piece. You can barely see it on a map.
Yeah. Yeah. Little sliver.
Now, what do I see? It's prophetic. Of course, it's prophetic. It is building up the Ezekiel 38. But remember, God established Israel in a day. Can a nation be born in a day?
Yes.
He established the wealth of the Arabs, of the Arab nations. It took how long? Thousands of years, right?
Right.
To establish. He's going to establish the wealth of Israel in a day to show his glory. Just like he established the nation. That's what I see is going to happen.
In the natural, you've got 7 million Jewish people.
We've got 8.2 already.
8.2 million.
8.2 million.
Jewish people in Israel, surrounded by, contiguously, okay, in Muslim nations. Okay, as we go north, we go northeast, we go due east, we go southeast, okay, out of Israel, and we go due south out of Israel into the African nations. We're surrounded by, and I think at last count is almost 55 contiguous Muslim nations, okay, that have a population percentage of 80% or greater, okay, surrounding Israel. 8 million, 250, 300 million.
Wow.
8 million, 300 million. 8 million, 300 million.
Impossible numbers.
Yeah.
And yet, you see the hand of God over this. How can they not? How can these errant, how can tens of thousands of rockets, and they just land in open fields? Okay. And then the one rocket that landed outside of Tel Aviv.
Yeah, in the Yishuv, yeah.
Under the order of Iran. Now the investigation's been completed. Iran ordered that strike. Iran set the trajectory.
Iran is controlling Hamas.
Exactly.
It's clear.
It's very clear. And so Benjamin Netanyahu, just before the election, goes to Moscow to visit with Vladimir Putin to say, okay, are you going to be the Gog of Magog and enter into this alliance with Iran that not only has the Gog-Magog connection, but also has the connection with Jeremiah talking about Elam, okay, another prophecy which is Western Persia, Western, and so people forget that it's not just Persia,
That's
it's
right.
not just Iran. There's also another prophecy of a Western nation, and we see that there's a great prophecy against them as well. We're seeing it unfold.
Yes,
Okay?
we are.
And yet, we have not seen the fullness of Isaiah 17 take place with Damascus. Okay? It has not fallen in a day, which means that we are now Israel sovereign to, will it be to Mount Bental, or will it be to continuing north to the border, okay, right there, which is now where the demilitarized zone of the United Nations is, but the true border of the Golan Heights is that road that goes straight across there.
That's why it's so huge, this declaration of the Golan Heights.
So huge.
Huge.
Okay? And so the decision has to be made, because then that puts us not 60 kilometers from Damascus,
Right.
but 30 kilometers from the outskirts of the newly built on neighborhoods.
That sign in Bentel has to be changed
That sign in Montauban.
from 60 to 30.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I'm so excited about, being able to go there, to stand there again, but knowing now this time, okay, I'm looking at, and what do they refer to the United Nations as in Israel? You see the UN, unnecessary.
Yes,
Unnecessary.
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 Yeah.
Okay, so you're not necessary. It's time to get out of here, because now what's happening is this UN outpost
Yeah.
is now in Israel.
Yeah.
Well, they're all over the Bentel area as well.
Right. Well,
They're everywhere.
that's what I'm saying. So this whole area you look out on, and that's fertile farmland. Okay, they need to get off of that so that we can have these fertile farms, because that's beautiful, rich, fertile farmland.
Amen.
So then you have Mount Hermon, you have the Lebanese border. So what are we looking at in the form of Lebanon? Hezbollah has been a Hezbollah nothing. For Iran to have this proxy of Hezbollah, and they've been ineffective. To have Iran go after Hamas, to align themselves with Hamas, because Hezbollah has been completely ineffective. Why does Lebanon not want to go to war with Israel? Are they fearful because of the last Lebanese war was a stalemate? Okay? Neither one gained any ground, but the point is that Lebanon gained no ground. And that's the point. It's not that Israel didn't. Israel held their own against a much more oppressive nation. So Israel is self-defending, self-sufficient,
No doubt.
capable of defending themselves against forces which are much greater than them. So as we look at the prophetic, We take a look at the role of Iran, of Russia, of Syria, of Turkey, of Lebanon, and now Saudi Arabia's voice being linked to the picture. Saudi
Yes.
Arabia, in this Ezekiel 38:39, they're actually opposed. They're vocal against the campaign of Armageddon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of that, politically speaking, it comes from the fact that Iran is 98 Shiite Muslim, and Saudi Arabia is 98% Sunni. And I don't know, the percentages
Right.
may be a little off, but I mean overwhelmingly. And of course, you've got Iran that's wanting this domination as much as it can of the whole area. Saudi Arabia is saying, wait a minute. You may not be aiming at us, you may be aiming at Israel, but we're right next to them, and you're wanting to control this whole area. So we're going to make different alliances here. And so, yeah, you can see this shift going on. Of course, we have this whole upheaval of the Middle East that happened with Arab Spring. Well, it's been going on, but that happened with Arab Spring. And you've got Syria in this civil war that's just collapsed, basically, which brought Russia. Of course, they've got a military base on the coast there that they were trying to protect. But then they get involved in the actual ISIS fighting, which brought the United States there. And then there were all of these difficulties about who's fighting who and who's supplying who and what side are we fighting. And, ISIS wasn't just, it wasn't this unified group. There were little factions even in that. And even among the Muslims were vying for territory. So you've got that whole mess, which brought China into the Horn of Africa and Djibouti, which, by the way, you can look up Djibouti, D-J-U-B, Djibouti, and you will discover that on a lot of the encyclopedic sites about that little nation, which is right next to Ethiopia, Cush of the Old Testament, Djibouti. Who is Djibouti? Well, you'll go to some of these encyclopedia sites, and it will say many historians and archaeologists believe that this is the ancient land of Put. Well, Cush and Put will be with them, Ezekiel 38 says. Well, what's in Put? What's in Djibouti? China's first international military base, 80 miles down the road from the United States' largest military base for that region, by which it feeds its troops into the Middle East. China's feeding its troops into Syria to join with Russia. Russia has been in cahoots with Iran, which is why Benjamin Netanyahu is sitting down with Putin now. Turkey is basically under Recep Erdogan, is falling into this Islamic caliphate idea. I mean, the whole thing is this powder keg, and here's this little sliver of land, Israel, sitting surrounded by either enemies or potential enemies. Even Saudi Arabia could be a potential enemy.
So historically,
overnight.
we're seeing the rise of the Ottoman Empire.
Yes.
The rise of the Persian Empire.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Then we're looking at the Arabian Peninsula coming to life again as it was, because this is the derivative of what we call the Arab nations, have to be from the Arabian Peninsula. You can't be an Arab from Turkey, you're Turkish. You're not an Arab.
Right.
Now, we talk about this region, but we have to go back in history to when this was the Arabian Peninsula for you to be considered to be an Arab. Okay? And so it's important that we have this clear distinction, but look at the empires.
Yes.
And we also know that historically that every empire that ever stood against Israel has failed. Therefore, no new empire to form against Israel can survive. And so they're building it on these shifting sands. Okay, that when the troubled times come, so look at the empires involved. Okay, the Egyptian Empire, the British Empire is a byword; they're non-existent. But the Ottoman Empire, okay, the Persian Empire, all these are empires of the Bible.
Yes.
Okay, that had sovereignty or some dominion over this. The Babylonian Empire had some dominion over this region, but yet there is now, you have the Jordan Rift Valley, which is so protected. It's a natural. You have the Mount Bental, which is a very natural, very defendable outpost right there over Syria. We have Mount Hermon and the outpost, the Lebanese outpost facing the Israeli outpost, and knowing exactly how we would handle Lebanon if we had to handle them again.
You have Rosh Hanikra.
Yes.
Rosh Hanikra, which is pointing towards Lebanon.
Yes.
Very important, by the way. They took the UN out of there. I don't know if you heard that. They're not there anymore. Only the IDF are there. So that's good news.
That's very good news. So we have a lot of things moving and
Yes.
shaking okay, moving towards a coming battle.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There's going to be, and I believe it's going to be in the next, if it's 4 years, I'll be surprised. But I'm looking at during this next term, why did Benjamin Netanyahu move the elections up? Okay? Because he wanted the longest duration of the term of Donald Trump to be in existence for the military of the United States. Okay, had he waited 6 more months, he would have lost 6 months worth of strategic alliance and the opportunity for a potential successor to Donald Trump that wasn't so supportive. He maximized the time in which he can leverage the United States military backing. Okay, a brilliant strategy. Why would you put yourself in jeopardy? Why would you put yourself up for criticism with this cigar gate? And with this submarine gate, and with all these other investigations, that they dropped all the charges against his wife,
Yes.
and they supposedly she was the airtight case. She was the one that was going to be convicted.
Yeah.
Well, they actually indicted her. There was an indictment, but it was thrown out the window. It was just to cause it's spiritual warfare. They're trying to take Benjamin Netanyahu's family out, just like they're trying to do to Donald Trump. But the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has turned things around right now, because if we're looking at this so-called indictment, which wasn't really an indictment, it was an indictment kafuf l'shimua, which means on the condition of a hearing. It's kind of different in Israel. Basically, we're going to hear you, and if we don't like what you have to say, then we'll indict you. So it's not really an indictment, but you can't answer us only after the election, because by that time it'll be all over. Well, it was looking pretty bad for Benjamin Netanyahu until the so-called mistake happened. When they fired the first rocket from Gaza, and they said, oh, it's a mistake. Well, Netanyahu knew it wasn't a mistake, but he said, you know what, we're going to elections right now. Let's say it was a mistake. But if a so-called mistake like this happens again, we're not going to tolerate it. But what happened 2 weeks later? Another mistake. But this time, Israel didn't tolerate it.
Right.
They went inside, and Benjamin Netanyahu did something and said something to the nation of Israel that changed the hearts of Israelis, the one who didn't want to vote for him.
Yeah.
He said, I am going to put my reputation, my election on the line for the security of Israel. First and foremost, Israel. This changed the hearts of the people, and that's what's going to get Benjamin Netanyahu elected this 9th of April, because the enemy has tried everything to destroy. It backfired on him.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right. Yeah. We're talking with Rabbi Zev Porat from Tel Aviv, Messiah of Israel Ministries, and Pastor Carl Gallups, carlgallups.com, authors of The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and The Identity of Messiah. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue in this dialogue about contemporary Israel, what's happening both biblically from a prophetic standpoint and from an election standpoint as to what's going to shape the new Middle East as we see it unfold before our very eyes. We'll be right back.
Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do, and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events.
Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Pastor Carl Gallups and Rabbi Zev Porat together, bringing you the Rabbi, the secret message, and the identity of Messiah, a stunning revelation from Rabbi Yitzhak Kadori, a venerable rabbi of Israel, one of the most revered in all of history, on a par with Rabbi Akiva, with Rashi, Maimonides, with the great sages of old, the Talmudic scholars, one who, when he spoke, the people listened. When he ruled and judged on a matter, it was final. This in his own hand, declaring that Yeshua was the Messiah and setting the world on edge as this great rabbi in his own hand makes this declaration. Zev, welcome back.
Rabbi Eric, thank you for having me.
Welcome back. We're talking about Israel. We're talking about not just the land, Eretz Israel, we're talking about the political landscape. So from a prophetic alignment, what are we seeing and what is this a foreshadowing of as we're watching these players, the Erdogans, the Rouhanis, the Putins, the Netanyahus, these conversations going on.
Yeah, it's not coincidental. It is biblical. It is prophetic, and it is. And here's the thing to remember: this particular alignment that we're watching, and we're watching it solidify. It's kind of like a bowl of Jello that's kind of turning into something before our eyes, but it has only begun, truly begun, and come to fruition in this historical generation. Never before in the history of the planet. Yet the Word of God recorded it thousands of years ago, that in the last days there would be a return to Israel. Ezekiel 37. Then sometime after they're in the land, they're strong, they're secure in that manner, these alignment of nations would begin to take place. We're watching that beginning to gel and to foment even now in this upheaval, the shaking of the Middle East. We said before the break about Russia being there with all of its troops, China on the western horn of Africa supplying troops. Now, you and I were talking off air just a few moments ago. We're watching this, this Persian Empire rising again with its strength, tying itself to Magog and whatever Gog of Magog it's going to be. We're watching that. Now, what's so significant about that? Well, the Persian Empire, it's in the Bible. I mean, in the Old Testament, the Tanakh ends with the Persian Empire in control. Malachi. And so what's significant about that? Well, we go back to the beginning of it with Esther, and we discover there was a guy named Haman in the Persian Empire that had an idea, let's kill all the Jews. It was almost a foreshadowing of the Holocaust that did happen, and another evil man that wanted to kill all the Jews and was in the process of doing it. Wow. So, do what?
I said, wow, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was. So you've got the Persian Empire rising again right before our eyes. Then Turkey, as I said, that's really collapsing into this beginnings of this rise of an Ottoman Empire. Well, what was the Ottoman Empire's desire? To control the land, to control Israel, what we would call Israel, to control Jerusalem, and to destroy the Jews. So that's happening again at the same time, the shift with Russia and China, Russia's alignment with Iran, North Korea with nukes. They're getting their nuclear technology, a lot of it out of Iran. Iran gets it from Russia. I mean, you're just seeing all these unholy alliances that are coming together right before our eyes. I don't set dates. You don't set dates. Zev doesn't set dates. I don't know, but it's coming like a flood. It's happening so quickly. And in the midst of it is Israel, the teeniest little sliver of land that truly is dominating world headlines about geopolitical happenings and geopolitical forces in the world, just like the Word of God said would happen in the last days.
And you're mentioning the political side. I'm thinking about, you mentioned the story of Esther and Haman and everything. The elections right now are happening in Israel. All this war, all the missiles, from what period of time?
Yeah.
A period of time between Purim, which is the story of Esther, Haman, which you mentioned, to the salvation that we have, Passover.
Jesus Christ.
Just in that period of time right there, we're seeing the spiritual warfare, all hell breaking loose.
Yes.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And the players involved in this, it's stunning.
Yes.
Because we tell the story of Haman or Haman, who happens to be an Agagite, who, back to the Amalekites, okay, back to Esau, the Edomites, okay, so we see this theme coming to fruition with an Edomite who declares, okay, as king of Israel from Rome, Herod, who's half an Edomite. So there's a continuous theme of this period of time of the bloodlines that swore to annihilate, to blot out, to eliminate the Jews. So now you have the spirit of Esau. You now have this permeating that now Messiah trying to prohibit the Messiah from being born. Now the Messiah is born. Another Edomite steps into the picture to kill the 2-year-old boys and under. Mm-hmm. So it's no coincidence that the three families involved are the descendants of Ishmael, the descendants of Esau, and the descendants of Lot, being Moab, okay, the Edomites, okay, and the Ishmaelites in all the 12 provinces, so Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, all then the Transjordan area of all the descendants of Ishmael, each one of those 12 which have now compounded. You see what's happening with Jordan, Moab, and all of the descendants of Lot in that region. And then you see where the Edomites and the descendants of winds up in Rome under a Roman king named Herod, who is now the descendant of Esau. And now you see how this has been like a poison of anti-Semitism, of anti-Jewish hatred, that's at the very core of this, and is the dividing line that we're going to see between the nations of Islam, which are Moab, which are the Edomites, which are the Ishmaelites, and all the nations underneath them are the Muslim nations fighting against, okay, little Israel, okay, and the world's going to have to decide which side you're on.
Right.
All right.
Are you on God's side? Or are you on Haman's side?
Exactly. Okay. And so this is the divide that's coming. So this is going to usher in this era of the Antichrist. And I think that's what we're in. We're in an era. We're not time setters, but we are people who read the signs. Okay? We recognize the seasons, and I think that we are the first generation that truly can biblically support that this is the era of the ushering in of the Antichrist.
We are.
The era
We are the
of
first
the
generation.
tribulation.
You're right.
Okay? That
The
yes,
spirit of
every
sorry.
generation of believers has had tribulation, but we're in this era of an alignment of nations according to the biblical families
Yeah.
of the descendants of those that God has determined will be lined up with the armies of the Antichrist and the people groups and the nations in which they've populated. And it's important we look at the biblical history and the genealogy and the lineage of the people that
Yes.
are involved. These names are significant today, more significant than ever. And the fact that an edict was issued on the 14th of Adar
Yes.
that said that Israel has the right to defend themselves from any enemy and to take
Yes.
the plunder. This on the 14th of Adar. This on the day that Donald Trump signs the declaration of the annexation, if you will, or the sovereignty of the spoils of the Golan Heights,
Yeah.
of invoking this edict that went to 124 provinces from Persia to Kush, all the way through India, all the way across. Now
Yes.
it's happening at this time.
And it's
in our lifetime.
It's amazing that you would bring that out about the 14th of Adar, because that it was almost like a holy, a godly canceling out of what Barack Obama did when Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking before Congress during the time of Purim. And he is begging Congress, please, and the president, please don't sign this compact with Persia. His words, he invoked the name of Esther and Haman. And he said, just like Haman was just trying to destroy us, well, Obama went apoplectic because he didn't like Benjamin Netanyahu anyway. He was mad at Congress for having him come over. Obama then issues a decree after Benjamin Netanyahu's finished. Oh, we are going to sign this, but I told you I would sign it on a certain date, but now I am going to delay it. And everybody thought, well, maybe Obama's changing his mind. No, what that evil, deceitful guy did was he waited and literally changed the signing of the compact with Iran. And Benjamin Netanyahu said, if you do this, it could be our destruction. Mm-hmm. So Obama changed it to the exact date that Haman signed the document with the king, the emperor of Persia, to destroy all the Jews. So then along comes Donald Trump. It's like he reverses the curse and on America, and he signs the Jerusalem Embassy Act on that day when the king of Persia signed the accord that the Jews have a right to defend themselves.
Amen.
This is astounding. This is not coincidental. It can't be coincidental.
There's no coincidence in the Word of God. You talk about Haman, and you talk about the 14 of Adar and everything, and the signature in Obama. Look, the Bible's clear. I will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. You mentioned Haman is a Hagag. Hagag is from the royal family. He's an Amalek. That's what it is. Hagag is just the royal family of the Amaleks. So we see that spirit moving through history, just moving and moving.
Yes.
But it's going to come to an end because God says in His Word, and I will blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Yes. We understand that that's the outcome. That's the end of all those that go against Israel.
And it was the king's error. You see, this all took place because of Saul's error. You see, had Saul done what God had told him to do,
but he was a man pleaser.
Right. He was a man pleaser. So he took the king, Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and displayed him around. And during that time, he must have had relations with a groupie. Because for us to have generations later, someone in his lineage to pop up to be an enemy means that Saul's error played out from generation to generation and surfaced at a point in time, and that Saul, who fell on his own sword because of this grievous position he had put himself in, that at our own hand, we have been the cause of our own. We have been, Jeremiah crying out. Everybody loves Jeremiah 29:11. Nobody loves Jeremiah 29:10. For 70 years, I'm going to send you into exile, but I know the plans I have for you. So we loved our idols. We loved our idol worship. We loved our wealth. And we lost our identity. We lost our Hebrew language as a spoken language. It wasn't until the late 1800s till it became revived again. So there's a long period of time in which our identity has been corrupted into the world, and we've been doing exactly what God told us not to do, which was assimilate. Now you want to assimilate? I'm going to let you assimilate. Now we're coming into our own, and we're seeing a reversal of things that were.
Yes.
And God is the God of restoration who promised that I'll restore what the locusts have eaten.
Yeah.
How wonderful.
Book of Joel, yeah.
Yeah, how wonderful and how powerful for us to see that the very prophecy of never again will my land to be divided, I'll restore what the locusts have eaten,
Yes.
I'm going to replace your heart of stone with the heart of flesh,
Yes.
I'm going to do this new thing in you, behold, I make all things brand new. I saw the beautiful poppy fields, okay, because of the extra rain this season. The glorious poppy fields of Israel, and my eyes were just, it was like candy to my eyes as to what happened.
Yes.
You mentioned the plunder. You spoke about the plunder earlier. Think about the story of Goliath and King David. They took the plunder of the camp as well. It's a beautiful picture of those who follow Yeshua will be victorious. We see the same thing in the book of Esther, and we see the same thing right now, what we spoke earlier, with the oil in Israel and the gas coming up, the plunder of the world, of the nations coming into Israel as a one-time blessing.
Yes.
It's all connected with the Bible. It's clear. It's one path, one way.
Yes.
And the brilliance, the Silicon Valley of Tel Aviv, this area, this region, that what's interesting is, and I just read an article that Israel has no automotive industry. There's no automobiles. They tried one.
They had the what was Susita?
Yes.
The Susita. It was what, 20 years ago. And
right,
then,
and it was wretched. It was horrible. But Israel has one of the most robust automotive. The largest company, well, one of the largest employers, has 500 employees. Waze, the map called Waze.
Yes, that's right.
Was created in Israel.
The GPS,
right?
yeah.
The GPS system was created in Israel. So there's great automotive technology coming out of Israel for driverless cars, and the roads are being equipped for driverless cars, and we'll see the implementation of driverless cars in Israel long before we're going to see it take off elsewhere, because, of course, you live in Tel Aviv, driving on the sidewalk is something that's common.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say,
We were
can you
talking
imagine
the other day.
driverless cars in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem? Can
Someone
you
was
imagine?
honking the horns here, so I said it's something normal in Israel. If you don't hear the horns honking, then it's, I think it's Yom Kippur or something.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
As soon as the light turns green, people behind you are honking the horns.
Exactly. And I've seen in Tel Aviv many times people get frustrated and there's an accident or something like that, and they'll pull up on the sidewalk and they'll just drive around it and pull back on.
On the sidewalk, on the grass, everywhere.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. This is and people say, is that unusual? And I go, no.
Moses had to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
But you know what, you said something a moment ago about the spirit of Antichrist. So concurrent with all of these things we're talking about is this, for the first time in human history, and we are a part of that historical generation, we're watching the spirit of Antichrist, which was prophesied and even existed in the Roman Empire. John said that. He said, look, the spirit of Antichrist is already here. He was right. It was in the Roman Empire. Oh my gosh, it was there. But it was not planet-wide as far as this whole demonic focus on the destruction of Israel, the possession of the Temple Mount, the destruction of the Jews. We are the first historical generation to see the spirit of Antichrist going globally.
That's right.
Instantaneous information communication systems, satellite technology, internet technology, cell phone technology, video technology, everything we have, television, radio, X radio, and all of this. All of these technologies, we're the first generation. Most of them have just really come into their own in the last couple of decades. Just a few decades ago, we didn't have all of this. Now it's happening. This spirit of Antichrist, this perversion that is rampant, that drug addiction, sex addiction. We build robots and AIs, and we say, well, what do we do with this? I know what. Let's have sex with it. I mean, it's going. The world's going out of its mind. We've opened Pandora's box. A lot of it will never stuff back in. Genetic editing, CRISPR-Cas9, humans and animals, and experimenting on embryos and changing them and designing them in the womb. And this is where we are. The spirit of Antichrist is now, it's encompassing the globe. At the same time, there's a great ingathering. Jews are being saved. Muslims are being saved.
And while all this is going on right now, Israel's lunar mission is entering lunar gravitational pull. as we're speaking right now. It is now passing through and entering as only the fourth nation in the world to have a moon launch. Okay? And this is Israel. Israel, how old?
Yeah, 70 years.
70 years.
70 years
Little
old.
teeny sliver of land,
In
surrounded by
in
enemies.
this place that
And what they did in 70 years is supernatural.
Supernatural.
In
Supernatural.
Humanly impossible.
impossible.
Most of the technology we have with our cell phones and with our computers would not be possible if it
Including
were
that
not
water
Israel.
phone cell phone that you got.
Including the cell phone full of water.
Well, it's amazing what God is doing with the little land of Israel.
It's amazing.
And if you don't understand that with God all things are possible, just think that in 1939 we were 18 million. 18 million Jews in the world. 2019 we're 14 and a half, maybe 15 million in the world. We're the only population in the world that's reduced over the last 80 years.
To show His glory.
But to show His glory, what we have done as a people, even though we're the only people group in the world that's reduced over the last 80 years, we are the only people group that has come together to form a nation, an independent nation, formed in a day. Can a nation be birthed in a day? And to see what is done and what the Jewish heart is, what the Israeli heart is, what the Sabra's heart is. Sabra meaning cactus. Prickly on the outside, soft on the inside.
Yeah.
This is the Jewish way. Yes, we are. Okay, you're much sweeter. Okay, but if we were to get an altercation, I'd want you right with me.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's a side of you that no one is going to see unless you pierce the veil to get to that Sabra. My guide in Israel, Ido. Okay, who's with me, been with me for so many years and so much a part of my life.
I met him last time. Yeah.
Yes, a Navy SEAL, a man who has great strength and power and sweetest. But yet you cross him. I can hear on the conversation. Okay, there's a whole. It's like there's a whole nother person. And so when we're pressed into a corner, okay, we're not the people of the world you want to press into a corner.
Right.
Okay, and we've told the world that. Okay, and Benjamin Netanyahu has been the best, most modern example of don't back us into a corner. You're not going to like what you see.
Right.
And it was said, the longer you delay negotiations with Israel, the less you're going to get.
That's true. And you mentioned Putin before, and we know what the newspaper is telling us on Fox News and CNN and real news, fake news, and everything. But the average Israeli in Israel, and that's what makes a difference, the street, the people of Israel, they know that one of the main reasons that he went to Putin, or another reason, is to tell Putin not to interfere in the elections.
Right.
That's the reason. And face to face, you're not going to want to do that, and not to be an ally with Iran, because Israel will not tolerate it.
Right.
Does Israel think that Putin is a friend of Israel? Absolutely not. They view him as an enemy. And this is something you may not hear on the news, but I'm telling you exactly what the people of Israel are saying.
Well, we're watching unfold before our very eyes. We've been talking with Carl Gallups, Pastor Carl Gallups, and Rabbi Zev Porat, together bringing you the book, The Rabbi, The Secret Message, The Identity of Messiah, and firsthand information straight from Israel about what's going on. You can join all three of us in Israel in any number of ways. I have a trip in 2020. I know that Pastor Carl will go again next year. Pastor Zev is there, or Rabbi Zev is there, and hosting trips all the time to Israel. You can find Rabbi Zev's website, messiahofisrael.com. Carl Gallups' website, carlgallups.com, and of course we are ignitinganation.com. We thank you for you being a part of our audience and for your continued support of this program. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.